as in my dream. The killer in my dream was named Bob.
There are many great and terrifying villains on TV. Marlo Stanfield, Lalo Salamanca, Ramsay Bolton, even the network from Utopia. But to me there is one that stands out as the most terrifying. Bob from Twin Peaks. Bob is an interdimensional being who possesses people in order to commit acts of violence and murder to feast on his victims. Now the story of Bob is interesting because he was created entirely on accident.
Frank Silva was the set decorator, and we were shooting in Laura Palmer's bedroom. And Frank was moving furniture around, and somebody said, a woman said, "Frank, don't lock yourself in that room," because he had just moved a chest of drawers in front of the door. And I wasn't even looking in that direction, but the image of Frank locked in that room popped into my head. And I rushed to Frank and I said, "Frank, are you an actor?" And he said, "Why, I happen to, yes, happen to be." And I said, "You're going to be in this movie." And he said, "Fantastic." And so I had Frank hide on one pan shot across Laura Palmer's bedroom, freeze down by the bars of the bed, and just be looking right at the camera. And we shot that. And I didn't know what I was going to use it for, no idea at all. We kept shooting in Laura Palmer's house, and that night we were shooting one of the last thing in the house. Mrs. Palmer's tormented on the couch, smoking a cigarette, and scenes are playing back in her head, and suddenly she sees something in her mind, bolts upright, and screams. Sean Doyle, he got that right, and tilts up and captures the scream perfectly. And I said, "Fantastic." And Sean says, "No, it's not fantastic." I said, "Sean, what is the matter?" He said, "Someone was reflected in the mirror." I said, "Who was reflected in the mirror?" And he said, "Frank Silva was reflected in the mirror." And that's when I knew that Frank was part of the scene.
And due to this accident, it fit the show perfectly, as one of the ways we see Bob the most is through mirrors, mainly during the period he has taken control of Leland Palmer. One of the biggest reasons Bob's is terrifying is because of the fact he appears only a few times, and he is shown to have the show's scariest scenes, which surprisingly don't incorporate jump scares, like his contact with Cooper during Cooper's dream sequence.
It's Bob. Mike? Mike? Can you hear me?
Which establishes he can talk to people in their dreams. This is reinforced when he appears in Renite's dream, and some things the writers did intentionally is name Laura's boyfriend and his friend, Bobby and Mike, to essentially trick the audience into thinking they both did it, only to find out that isn't true, again, through Cooper's dream, where we see both Mike and Bob. And what makes this even scarier is the fact it seems as though Bob is addressing the audience itself, via looking directly into the camera, intensifying the scene, as especially this early on in the show, you have no idea what's going on. Next I want to talk about the performance from the late Frank Silva. Now I think this performance is great, as despite having barely any screen time, 6 minutes to be exact, he is still very memorable, and one of the main reasons is his performance. Now I think this character would be hard to act, due to the fact it could go easily into silly territory, but Silva nailed the role, and most of his performance was through his facial reactions, which he perfected, like when he appears behind Laura's bed. Which is one of the most famous shots from the show. And I think one of the best things Frank did was his laugh, as I think every great villain that laughs should be great, like the Joker's. And I think Frank's is just equally, if not more, terrifying, especially during the Black Lodge scenes. It's a shame he died, as I think he would have had a bigger career ahead of him, and I think he would have had a bigger part to play in Twin Peaks: The Return. But despite that, his performance was immense and definitely memorable. Next is what he represents. Now, due to being forced to reveal the identity of Laura's killer, and Lynch leaving for most of season 2, when Leland is arrested and dies. During his death, he is essentially made innocent from his crimes. But as we find out in Twin Peaks' prequel movie, he wasn't so innocent, as it is very evident that he was abusive towards Laura, which was barely touched upon in the original series.
This from your lover?
They don't call them lovers in high school, Leland.
Bobby didn't give you this.
How do you know that Bobby didn't give her that?
Did Bobby give you this? Or is there someone new?
Leland.
Which was barely touched upon in the original series. But from the movie, it's evident that he represents abuse, as in the movie it's mentioned that he has raped Laura since she was a young girl, and when he eventually kills Laura, does so then again. And Bob possibly took control of Leland when he was younger, by his next door neighbour at the lake house next door. He's evil for fun. Now, as well as representing abuse, Bob is evil for fun, in order to produce garmonbozia, or as it's also known, pain and suffering. And this evil for fun is hinted at by, and as we later find out, Bob was essentially created by humans, reinforcing basically creating a cycle of abuse and evil, as the atomic bomb was used to kill masses of people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So Bob was birthed from the violence humans wanted to cause on each other over and over again. And this is exactly what Bob does, and he enjoys doing so, as shown after Josie's death, where she is shown to mock Cooper and laughing at him.
What happened to Josie?
And finally, he won. Bob's goal was for Laura to be his new host, which did not happen. But after Leland's death, Bob was free, and when Cooper enters the Black Lodge, Bob teams up with evil Cooper to gain freedom. As we know, Cooper's doppelganger chases down and beats Cooper to the outside world, which means Cooper has to remain in the lodge for 25 years. And come the end of the second season, we see evil Cooper and Bob have essentially won, as now Cooper is trapped in the Black Lodge, and Bob is now free to do whatever he wants alongside evil Cooper, spreading evil throughout the world.
How's Annie? How's Annie? How's Annie?
So, in conclusion, while only appearing for 6 minutes, Bob was able to terrify audiences and remain as a constant evil throughout Twin Peaks, and representing a cycle of abuse and evil. In my opinion, Bob is TV's most terrifying villain.